It sounds like this thing, that sounds like that thing. It's hard to break out of it.
Okay. So going back to the whole issue of Weezer, I guess you guys have maybe received a lot of criticism about your big hit, the song Popular, which was, I guess, in a lot of cases misconstrued as a Weezer ripoff. I mean, how do you guys respond to that sort of criticism?
That's a new one. I never really heard that one, honestly.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just,
because
maybe
we
it's
were
just
talking at the beginning of the sort of.
I'm not sure exactly.
I have heard that one.
Like I said, we hear this comparison. We usually get placed in the same sentence quite a bit, that we can't quite figure out why, except maybe that we get the same producer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's like a voiceover at the beginning of the Sweater song, and there's like a voiceover at the beginning of Popular.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really, when you really listen to them back to back, that's about the closest thing that there are. So it doesn't bother us. Like I said, we're Weezer fans, and we have consciously tried to emulate them, and I think that playing the records back to back will bear us out, but we don't really sound anything like them. If so, it's totally coincidental, maybe by the fact that
we have a lot of the same influence. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, that's true.
Like they love the Pixies, we love the Pixies.
Right.
But there's a lot of influences that are not shared. They obviously they love Kiss, and I'm sorry for all the Kiss fans, but I hate Kiss. But obviously, we're probably right around the same age and grew up listening to the same sort of
they're
stuff.
like metal guys. Didn't they come from this like sort of Ozzy Osbourne kind of background, as I
Yeah.
understand? That's totally not in our book of things that we have.
Slayer! All right, yeah.
That's
Metal. Okay, so let me ask, it looked like you guys are having a good time up there tonight. What's the most positive? Really? Okay. I tried to get everybody to start chanting "Not a Surf," but they wouldn't.
Oh, that was you!
Yeah.
Two or three was more than we expected.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what's the most positive experience you ever had playing a show?
It's very gratifying to play shows. I mean, most shows are really pretty great. It depends. I mean, some nights there's a lot of people that are there specifically to see you. I think just meeting people that are there to see you, and that you have some sort of rapport with them through your music. You might not necessarily know them personally, but there's a common ground just because you listen to music and they listen to music and they listen to your music, and I mean that's definitely one of the better parts, especially when you're on tour, because you're away from your family and away from your friends. So the human contact is definitely the best part. And just being in playing a show that's packed with hundreds of, or it could be a really small club and there's 100 people, but it's packed and everyone's really into the music, and it's really gratifying.
Yeah.
And then just this lifestyle. I mean, look at us. I mean, this is our job. It's
It's just so ridiculous.
how much luckier could you be? You write these songs. I mean, and it's not like we obsess about music. Like, oh my God, music is the only thing in my life. It's not like that. This just happens to be one of the things we do. It's pretty amazing to think that you're lucky enough to be able to go on tour, play in front of people that actually know your lyrics and stuff like that. It's a pretty lucky thing. I think I see a lot of bands that just don't appreciate that, and they sort of go around feeling, like they're not. Man, I should be so much bigger. Like, what is this? Where are the towels? Like. I had to walk up a flight of stairs to go to the bathroom.
Curses and drat.
Yeah. So, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. And usually it's all really good, and for us, it's all good.
Okay. Conversely, what might have been the most negative, horrible, regretful experience you ever had playing a show?
I totally know what he's going to say. Go ahead.
Who, me?
I know you know the answer.
Oh, the guy in London? That show in London?
Ooh, okay, that you surprised me.
Wow.
What show in London?
The show in London where the guy kept spitting at me? And then he hit me in the face with my own microphone. That was kind of I really felt like killing the guy.
Sure.
This guy kept, as you would say in London, gobbing at me. He was very punk rock, and we obviously weren't punk rock enough for him. Even though he was at this techno disco that was having a band before the actual techno started. Very strange. But anyway, so he kept gobbing at me, and and I was trying to, and in the back of my head, I'm thinking, wow. Now I understand that story of how Joe Strummer from The Clash got hepatitis because somebody kept gobbing at him, and he actually caught one in the mouth, and he got hepatitis, like hepatitis B, which is really evil. So this guy kept doing that, and that was pretty bad. But then he kept, the stage was about this high, so my mic stand was right there. So he kept slamming the mic stand, and it kept hitting me until at one point it actually hit me right in the teeth, and then it fell on the floor and actually knocked me back because I was going forward to sing, and he slammed it in my face like that. and I just stopped. I just stopped the show. I was like, you know, and the people that were there, it's kind of weird because you have all these like big security gorillas that are there, and they're giving the fans a really hard time. They're always like people that are jumping up and down, and people that are trying to crowd surf, whatever. They grab them, they throw them out. But then there's this obvious troublemaker who's just gonna, you know, really cause some trouble, and they just let him do that stuff for a really long time. It was weird. That was pretty bad, but I still had a pretty good show.
That was a pretty good show.
Which one did you think was gonna be?
I was gonna say the MTV Beach House one.
Oh yeah, but that wasn't really a show. That was just
Yeah,
like,
that
you know,
was a show.
that was like licking MTV's. Beep, beep.
Really? So what was it like working with MTV?
You know, I mean, we didn't really work with them. We just
Yeah.
made a video, and then they decided to play it ad nauseum. And, you know, whatever.
Okay.
But we did
The
this.
time we were ever there was that to do we did 120 minutes. At the
Which was
studio,
great.
Which was a lot of fun.
That was really great. Actually, I just saw it for the first time the other day. Somebody at one of at our shows last week gave us a tape of the 120 minutes, which I'd never seen. So that was actually really, really cool.
My girlfriend said I looked like an idiot. You're so corny. I'm like, yeah, well, duh.
No, that's pretty good. It was alright. It's pretty good. But we did this thing with MTV, the MTV Beach House, and that was really pathetic. I mean, we almost didn't do it. We kind of obsessed about it for a really long time, and we kept thinking of doing something really crazy, like just really trying to come up with some great idea of what we could do. And for a while,
they wanted to do the beach house thing.
Yeah.
Everyone stands around outside. And
everyone's wearing like $500 sunglasses, and everybody's got like a six pack.
You know,
we're like
people
huge.
dancing around. And like, this is totally not our scene. Like, how can we make this fun? Like, okay, let's have big football players making out.
Yeah, we were gonna have
Play the song.
like two quarterbacks making out on stage. The whole,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's
like-
LA. You can find actors.
Everyone
and
was
stuff.
all like up in arms about this alleged, homoerotic thing that supposedly happened at the end of the video.
Yeah, which was such a
Totally
load of
bogus anyway.
crap. So
And
we thought,
let's
okay,
really
we're gonna
press
do
them.
that.
But people want to get their friends pressed.
Yeah,
press them.
let's really
But
put them.
all the ideas got totally
Rock the
mixed.
system, man.
Whatever.
Yeah,
so,
but it's
but
fun.
we were on tour, so we didn't have time to do any of that. Like,
Right.
you know, it's just like show after show after show, and so many interviews. And
So we just
so
show up
much
there,
press.
and they're like, okay, can we just do it kind of low key? We just because we were doing an acoustic version, like low key. We didn't want all that, whatever, dancing around.
No, none of that.
So we did a sound check. It was great, and then we're ready to go.
I was terrified. I was terrified of the whole, like, for days. I was just like, oh my God, what are we going to do? I still didn't really know whether we were going to do it or not. But as it turned out, we had all these friends in LA. And our manager's from LA, and we're really good friends with his family and his daughters. And they came, and, like, we had all these friends. Like, in the end, there were, like, several cars, and we were, like, a whole bunch of cars going down the freeway. We got there, and it ended up being really nice. We're playing. You know, we set up. They want us to sound check, so we ended up doing like basically an acoustic set, which we love to do. And all of our friends are there, sitting right behind us, and meanwhile they're getting the cameras ready and all that stuff. And we thought, and then I thought, this is actually kind of cool. I mean, we're overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It's gorgeous. I'm like, I brought my boogie board, so I know that they're really good waves. I know that as soon as we're done, I'm gonna go down there and catch some waves. And it was like, wow, this is really nice. No big deal. I thought it was going to be so
And then
scummy
the
and
chick
awful.
comes with the clipboard and goes, okay, guys, take your shirts off. Girls, we want to put you here. And then suddenly it was like,
Yeah, and then all you people
mustaches,
right now.
and the
They
girls
threw
came
all
up
our friends out.
and they
They
threw
wouldn't,
everybody out.
they wouldn't let our friends stay.
And then they
were
wanted
like,
you
guys
guys. They
are
wanted to
fabulous
like,
now.
and then they were like, okay, we want you to really cheer really loud, and they coaxed them like in certain lines in the song to when he goes, you can date whoever you want, that line or something. They were like conducted into cheering.
So then, I got really upset because I thought
he was going to jump over the.
Yeah, I mean, I was really
He was
upset.
standing there looking out at the ocean.
I actually let my guard down. I thought, I was so worried. I didn't know what we were gonna do. But then once all our friends were around us, and there were a few kids that had begged. They were at the door, and they wouldn't at the gate, and they wouldn't let them in. So we convinced the MTV people to let these kids in who were underage and couldn't come see us in LA. So we let them in. There were like 4 kids wearing Weezer t-shirts and stuff, and they were so into it. And they were all over, and it was great. So I totally let my guard down, and then they got thrown out, and all these plastic characters got thrown in there, and it just felt so awful. I actually stopped. I said, I can't do this, and I left. And then Matthew convinced me. Matthew said this really funny thing. He goes, I'm like literally like I'm sitting on the cliff with my feet dangling over this like 300-foot cliff. I'm like I'm crying. I'm like I'm not doing this. I can't. There's nothing in my head that justifies doing this thing. I mean, you know, I just couldn't bear it.
Just a fan.
And then Matthew comes over and he says, listen, think of this. Think Velvet Underground. Think of this as like the ultimate like art rock, like just performance art,
right?
You know, and I was like, okay. It's like and then this is like if we were gonna do a video to like this could be another way of doing the video. Think about it. Like we're making fun of these idiots behind us who don't even get that we're making fun of them. So and
so
then
we changed the lyrics as he sang the song. He's saying, you're the head of the class, you're the quarterback, sort of like looking at them over our shoulders. Like we pointed the whole song at the crowd behind us. No one really got it. I mean, a few kids actually got it.
Yeah. There were these kids.
It was pretty clear that we were not awful.
Whatever. That was pretty bad.
I'm sure it sounds pretty frustrating. You come from humble roots and end up being forced to work for the system like that. It was like
they just want to turn it into
I don't work for the system, man.
Right. Totally. Hey, there's the system.
Yeah, but it's the whole system is you've got to know that that's what you're doing. I mean, the moment you put your name down into paper for a major label, you know that there's stuff they're going to ask you, and you either play ball or you don't play ball. You can't pretend to be like, oh, too cool for this or too cool for that, and yet you're down with like signing down your name and getting the royalties and all that stuff. I mean, there's really when we signed with like we knew damn well what we were getting into. We knew that they weren't going to get things. We knew that we were going to have to fight them over which single to release or over which way to record, blah blah. We put our limits, very very clearly. Like, okay, when we record the record, nobody from the record label can be around. That's our thing. We do all the graphics for the record. You cannot even publish a photo of us unless we've okayed, the three of us have okayed this picture. You sort of set your limits. But I mean, you still know that you're basically making a pact with the devil. So you have to play along.
That's interesting. What was it like working with Charlton Heston?
Oh, you mean when we were extras in remember the Ten Commandments when he's part of the Red Sea? I was in the chariot and you were.
Oh, really?
You had a
I
mule.
totally forgot about that.
You were the mule trader.
Basically, Charlton was a dick.
Charlton Heston. NRA.
So how long have you guys been supporters of the NRA?
I ever since my dad used to take me hunting. I grew up in Queens, and we would hunt. We actually
Pretty
Jewish community.
You don't
we
realize
hunt
how relevant that question is because right now, with what's going on in the election, the presidential election in this country, it is just so obvious that the Constitution was made, for a purpose at a certain point in time. Like, I'm not American, so I really see this as you guys have this. You put the Constitution up there on the pedestal, and it's used like the whole gun thing is just it's such a misuse of what the founding fathers meant to express when they wrote that Constitution. They didn't mean that any yokel could go down to the fucking to the beeping
Beep it up.
gun show and buy basically an AK-47. And just drive off with it without even having to show a piece of ID. I mean, it's preposterous. And to hold, in one hand the Constitution saying this is my constitutional right. I mean, it's a travesty. It's outrageous and it's pathetic and it's obscene. It's obscene because the Constitution was put there to respect people's rights. And and actually one of the really I don't want to get so heavy. But the really funny thing that I've heard about it is that guns are completely anti-Darwinistic, and if Darwin was alive today, you'd have to review his theory of evolution. Yeah, because the whole thing with evolution is that people that are brighter and stronger, blah blah, would survive. Whereas now, anybody that can just go and buy a gun is going to just kill whoever else would be smarter or stronger or better.
So it wouldn't be survival of the fittest. It would be
survival of the arm. Yeah. The whole gun thing is
survival of the strap.
Right, sounds that's a good point. If you don't mind me asking, what country are you from?
I'm from Spain. I'm from Madrid, in the south of France.
Sure. So what do you think of our beautiful America?
I love the States. I mean, I
You
specifically love New
you
York.
can't get a proper cup of coffee, it's driving me nuts.
You know, that kind of drives me nuts. No, but I mean, there's a lot of cities in the States that I really like. I get a little bit down with things like, you know, what's happening now with the electoral system. I mean, that's just a great example of things that you know. But I have high hopes for you. I mean, you're such a young country. It's sometimes I think that like, wow, you know, it's not over yet.
Shucks.
You know, 200 years and you're doing
We're
quite
trying.
well.
We are.
But
We're
you
trying.
gotta shape up.
I know it's that McDonaldization of the rest of the world.
Yeah, that
I gotta
really
apologize for that. That's so.
What do you think is going on in France
In France, what do you mean?
with
Like,
McDonald's?
McDonald's on
has something been happening like lately, like in the last few days? Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Well, like the
I mean,
last couple months.
You know, I mean, I think in general, there's a very strong issue with this sort of cultural dominance, this you know, sort of cultural imperialistic domination by the United States. It's these huge countries. I mean, these huge companies that in a way are American, but in a way they're not really. I mean, they're multinationals. They get their software written in India and their stuff is made in somewhere else, but it is seen from the rest of the world as this sort of cultural export of the United States, and it does suffocate local cultures. I mean, it really does. My personal experience with this, I went to visit. My dad was working in the Philippines, and I went to visit him when I was 19, and it was really you know, heartbreaking that you were in Manila, and you know, there's like a two-way avenue with a little divider in between, with like maybe a little hedge and maybe a tiny bit of grass. There was like, you know, there were 3 families living in every 20 feet. I mean, you know, I'm talking so poor.
On the highway divider?
Yeah, just in any kind of place where they could make a shack. That's where they were living. And right in front, you'd see Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, you know, Pizza Hut, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was just this sort of this clash of, you know, of things. It just didn't make any sense.
With a Ken Copley, he goes, yeah, my son came home from school the other day. He goes, Dad, I can say 2 words in any language. And he goes, okay, 2 words in Swahili. He goes, Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Anyway.
Interesting. Getting back to the issue of music a little bit. Sorry, not to change the subject.
No, please. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. This is a sort of 2 questions in one, but I was kind of wondering, like, what was it like tonight not being the headlining band on the bill? And what advice might you have for younger bands who are
Someday we'll get those awful impossibles. They'll see.
I don't know. It's totally cool not to headline. It's not. We don't. If we had big egos, we wouldn't. I don't know. I don't think we'd be in this band. I mean, you know, we're not about the big ego or like we have to headline or anything like that. It's actually really fun not to headline.
Yeah, the pressure's off you.
Yeah, in a way, you know. I mean, it's all good. I mean, when you get to open, we've opened for people that we really